So, today, we're talking about a massive national gamble. It's this high-stakes bet on a technology that could literally change everything, and Canada is pushing all its chips to the middle of the table.
And let's just start with the number that puts this all into perspective. $2 billion. That's how much Canada has poured into quantum research over the last 20 years. This isn't just some small side project. It is a long-term, foundational national mission.
And that brings us to today. Because after all that time, all that money, we're hitting a really critical moment. You could even say that 2026 is shaping up to be the year where all these theoretical promises finally get put to the test in the real world.
Okay, so to really get why this moment is so tense, we need to go back and look at a story that pretty much haunts every single policy conversation about quantum happening in Ottawa. It's a bit of a ghost story for Canadian tech.
And this is that story. It's the cautionary tale of D-Wave. It was founded out in British Columbia, and it basically pioneered a whole type of quantum computing. For a long time, it was the quantum hardware company on the planet. But you can probably guess what happened next. Despite its Canadian roots, that gravitational pull from Silicon Valley was just too strong. Now, it's a successful public company, but it's not a Canadian one anymore.
So for Canadian policymakers, the big question became, how do we stop the next D-Wave, right? How do we make sure that the next quantum giant we create actually stays home? And that question led to a very deliberate, you might even say aggressive, new strategy. And here is their answer. The Canadian Quantum Champions Program. This is not just a simple grant. Think of it more like a set of golden handcuffs. The money is tied to hitting specific milestones, sure, but the most important string attached is the one right there. You have to stay headquartered in Canada. It's a strategy of, basically, sovereign retention.
And they are absolutely backing this up with serious cash. We're talking about a $334 million commitment over 5 years. This shows you it's a real, long-term industrial policy. The goal here isn't just to fund cool research papers. It's to build a lasting domestic quantum industry.
So who did Canada pick to be the flag bearers for this new national strategy? Well, let's meet the 4 companies that were chosen to become Canada's quantum champions. Now, what's really fascinating here is the diversity. Canada isn't just betting on one horse in this race. It's actually backing 2 totally different core technologies. You've got photonics, which, well, it uses light particles as its quantum bits, and then you have superconducting circuits, which uses these tiny supercooled electrical circuits, kind of similar to what giants like Google and IBM are doing. It's a whole portfolio of very high-stakes bets.
And you can see this portfolio approach perfectly right here. Even within the same technology, Canada is backing different paths to victory. So Xanadu's trying to use photons to build the computer itself. Meanwhile, Photonic Inc. is using those same photons to act as links to connect silicon-based qubits together. They're trying to build what could become a quantum internet. Same tech family, completely different goals.
And then you have Anion Systems. And these guys are really the purest example of this whole sovereignty strategy. While the other champions are working with the US Defense Agency, DARPA, Anion made a conscious choice to say, no thanks. Now, why would they do that? To avoid any US government claims on their intellectual property. It is a huge gamble that owning a fully sovereign Canadian-owned manufacturing stack is going to be incredibly valuable down the road.
But look, a successful national strategy can't just be about building the main computer, right? You need a whole ecosystem to grow around it. And that brings us to the bigger picture. So, Canada's national quantum strategy is really built on 3 main pillars. Yeah, computing, that's the big prize. But just as important are communications, making sure our data is actually safe in a quantum future, and sensing, which is where some of the most immediate near-term commercial applications are.
This little equation here, from Michel Mosca, who is basically one of the godfathers of Canadian quantum, explains the urgency perfectly. It's what's known as the harvest now, decrypt later threat. Think about it. Adversaries are scooping up our encrypted data today, just waiting for a quantum computer powerful enough to crack it all open tomorrow. This one idea has turned post-quantum cryptography from an academic problem into a C-suite emergency. And that urgency, it creates immediate commercial value. This isn't all about waiting around for some giant futuristic machine. The value today is in securing our data, in using quantum simulation to discover new drugs and new materials, and in developing these hypersensitive quantum sensors to find the critical minerals we need. These are real, tangible benefits for Canada's most important industries.
So you're probably wondering, how is Canada punching so far above its weight in this incredibly complex field? Well, the answer lies in a secret weapon that's been 20 years in the making. This right here, this is the bedrock of the entire bet. Decades of sustained investment built these world-class research hubs, like Waterloo's Quantum Valley and the Institut Quantique in Sherbrooke. And these places didn't just produce research papers, they produced people. The founders of the very companies we've been talking about, they were trained here. It's this incredibly deep well of talent that makes the whole national strategy even plausible. Which, of course, brings us right back to where we started. It brings us back to that central question, the one that D-Wave's departure forced the entire country to confront.
Because at the end of the day, it really comes down to this. Will Canada's incredible research advantage actually turn into a lasting sovereign quantum industry? Or will it just end up being a world-class talent pipeline for Silicon Valley and other global tech hubs? The stakes, honestly, could not be higher.
And here's the context for that choice. While Canada's investment is big, it's absolutely dwarfed by the insane amounts of public money being spent in the EU and China. Canada simply cannot win by outspending its rivals. And that makes its unique strategy, this big bet on sovereign retention and building a complete ecosystem, all the more critical to its success.
So, that's the question we leave you with. After 2 decades of investment and this bold new strategy, will Canada become a true global leader in the quantum age, anchoring world-changing companies on its own soil? Or will it just be remembered as the world's best farm team, developing top talent for other countries to sign? The next few years are going to decide.